How a toy company sold twice as many toys during Christmas time using one very simple psychological hack. We humans are creatures of habit. When given a choice, we'll choose something that is safe and familiar rather than something that is unfamiliar and potentially dangerous. One historian said that the history of humanity is a history of scared and lazy people doing everything we can to make life easier and safer. According to evolutionary psychologists, this is because our brain is our most expensive organ. Our brain uses more calories per gram than any other body part. So back during our evolutionary history, when food and energy was very scarce, we had to evolve some very, very shortcut type thinking patterns. So if we did something and it worked, we always did that same thing. And this comes across in a lot of ways in modern society. For example, whenever I want to buy a new computer, I always choose a Dell. I don't waste a lot of time doing any kinds of research. I just do with what works. I stick with what works. Whenever I need to buy a new pair of running shoes, I stick with New Balance. I never even consider any other brand. I've bought New Balance ever since I was in high school. Whenever I need to restock my cupboard of peanut butter, I always buy Teddy's peanut butter. I never consider any other brand than Teddy's all natural, super chunky peanut butter. This is often referred to in psychology as the law of commitment and consistency. We tend to do what we tend to do. And this can be leveraged for a lot of interesting psychological effects. A couple of ways this shows up is when they look at jury trials, they separate the jury trials into two different categories. One category, everybody votes guilty or not guilty, but they keep their votes secret. And then they deliberate, then they vote, then they deliberate, then they vote, then they finally reach a consensus and they're finished. The other category is where everyone says their vote out loud. They make a public commitment to their position. The jury trials where they make a public commitment to their position last twice as long. Because once you make a public commitment to your opinion, it's much, much harder to change your opinion. Whereas when you keep it secret, it's easier to change it because nobody knows you're changing it except for you. This is why Democrats will always vote for Democrats. Republicans will always vote for Republicans unless something traumatic happens in their lives with respect to their party and their beliefs. They've done experiments where they take a large neighborhood and they split it in two halves. One half, the other half. This half, they go to every house and they say, hey, can we put this ginormous sign on your front lawn? Everybody says, no, thank you. Then they go to another neighborhood and say, can we put this teeny tiny sign inside your house? A very innocuous sign. We support Neighborhood Watch. We support the triangle, something very plain. And some people say yes to this sign. Then they go back to this second neighborhood and ask to put in the big sign, the same big sign that everybody said no to in this neighborhood. But because this big sign was consistent with what they'd done before, some of these small sign people will agree to a big sign. So they kind of warm the person up first before they ask for the big sign. This is very much like a sales funnel. It's easy to buy a $1 product. Then it's a little bit easier to buy a $5 product. Then it's a little bit easier to buy a $100 product. Whereas if the company tried to sell a $100 product first, they probably wouldn't sell near as many, which is why a lot of companies will lose money on the $1 product and the $5 product. It's also why it's very easy when you're buying a car, when you've already made the decision to buy a car, to buy all this extra stuff. Or when you buy a Happy Meal at McDonald's, it's easier to supersize everything because you're already paying. It's consistent with what you've been doing. One strange place where this law of commitment and consistency pops up is in doomsday cults. Let's say you meet this very, very charismatic cult leader. And this cult leader says, the world is ending this summer. The world will end June 6 at 6:66 p.m. You must quit your jobs. You must sell all your belongings and give your money to me so we can get ready for the end, so we can buy our ticket on the spaceship that will take us away from the end of the world. And so these people make all these public commitments to their belief in this crazy cult. But the date comes and the world doesn't end. It would seem that these people, because they look like idiots, would maybe say, okay, I was wrong, please, boss, give me my job back. But that's not what happens. What happens is these people tend to double down on this doomsday cult. They strengthen their belief in this goofball cult leader. And sometimes they keep doubling down on their belief in this goofball cult leader. They follow this goofball cult leader all the way to the jungle and have a purple Kool-Aid party to end everything. Now, this toy company found a very clever way to leverage this. This was back before the internet. And the toy company would blast on TV these ads for this toy. And they structured the ad so the kids would watch this ad and tell their parents, Mom, look, it says to ask parents, it says Santa Claus, Mom, look, the toy, he's Santa, Christmas, Mom. And they would blast these ads for a couple of weeks, maybe a month before Christmas. Every time the ad would come on, the kid, Mom, it says to tell Santa Claus, I need you promise, until the parent would promise to buy that toy. But then when it came time to go shopping for the Christmas presents, a couple of weeks before Christmas, somehow this toy would just poof, vanish. It couldn't be found anywhere. The parents would go shopping for this toy. Everybody was looking for this toy. Nobody could find this toy. So the parents would have to buy a replacement toy, which made the kid feel bad and created a bunch of emotional problems in the family, but so what? But then a month or two after Christmas, this toy company would suddenly discover this toy in that one warehouse they forgot to look in earlier. And they would blast the TV again with those same ads. Mom, you promised. And the parents would think, crap. Because they did promise to buy this toy. So the parents would go back to this toy store, the parents would buy that toy, and they would trick the kids and the parents to buy twice as many toys at Christmas time. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, wow, this is a fantastic trick. How can I use that trick to brainwash and manipulate my friends? Well, lucky for you, my fellow Toastmasters, I'm going to tell you how to do that. It's very, very simple. There's a 3-step process to use the law of commitment and consistency to convince people to do what you want. A 3-step process. Step 1 is you figure out what you want them to do, like help out the veterans. Step 2 is define something they've already done in the past that is very similar to this. Step 3 is to use the magic word because. This is another psychological brain hack that has been studied unto itself. For example, they sent people into companies to wait in line to make copies. And they say, I need to make copies. Can I cut in line? Everybody says no. They say, can I cut in line because my car is parked in the red? Oh, okay, yeah, you can cut in line. But then they play around with the words they put after the because. Can I cut in line because I'm in a hurry? Sure, go ahead. Can I cut in line because I have to make copies? Which doesn't make any sense because everybody has to make copies. But for some reason, when people say the word because, it acts like a magic trick on our brain. So even when they say, can I cut in line because I need to make copies, some people say yes. And so the 3-step process is you figure out what you want your target to do. You figure out what they've already done, which is very familiar to this. You add in the magic word because, and Bob's your uncle. For example, because you've come to Toastmasters many times in the past, because you can remember standing up here and giving a speech, you can decide right now to give a speech next week. Everybody can give a speech next week. Because everybody in your family, your friends, your colleagues, because they know you've come to Toastmasters every week, because they know you make a public commitment to public speaking, it's easy for you right now to make a decision to bring all your family and friends here next week. It's a very simple decision. because you have a lot of memories of standing up here and having that good feeling that you've just finished a fantastic speech, because you have those rushes of endorphins and confidence after your speech, because you could remember those memories right now, you can make a decision right now to become the greatest public speaker in the world.